Spanish, like most languages, has a long history, throughout which it has changed drastically over time. Today, I'll be going through the evolution of Spanish from Latin to Vulgar Latin to Old Spanish to the language we all know and maybe love today. I'm joined by TheLingOtter, who will be narrating a few sections.
Hey guys, I'm TheLingOtter and I'm here to talk about the evolution of the Spanish language with the LingoLizard. Thank you so much for watching this video and I'll see you in a bit.
Our story starts with Latin, the ancestor of Spanish and all Romance languages, which I'll briefly describe the sounds and grammar of. Its consonants were ma, na, pa, ba, ta, da, ka, ga, qua, gua, fa, sa, ha, ra, la, ya, and wa. Some of which, such as sa, na, and la, could be doubled, compared ani with anni. Latin had the typical 5-vowel system with a length distinction, so there were a, e, I, o, and u, with diphthongs I, oi, and au. Its nouns could be grammatically masculine, feminine, or neuter, and inflected for Latin's 6 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative, and vocative. Adjectives agreed for the gender, number, and case of the nouns they modified, and there weren't any articles yet. Latin verbs agreed for the subject pronoun, with forms for the first, second, and third persons across the singular and plural. Verbs had the present, future, imperfective, perfect, future perfect, and pluperfect tenses, distinguished between the indicative, subjunctive, and imperative moods. It had various participles and gerunds. If you don't understand anything I just said, which would be very fair, feel free to pause and read these definitions. Towards the end of the Roman Empire, Vulgar Latin developed out of Classical Latin, and would later evolve into all the modern Romance languages, like Portuguese, French, Italian, and Romanian. I'll summarize all of the changes from Classical Latin to Old Spanish in one lump, since it's fairly difficult to tell which changes occurred at which state, from Vulgar Latin to Western Romance to Ibero-Romance. Old Spanish was spoken from around the 800s until the 1400s, roughly corresponding to the Reconquista era in Spanish history. The vowels were completely reworked. Latin short e became open mid e, and both long e and short I became closed mid e. Similarly, short o became pronounced as o, and long o and short u turned into o. Vowel length was also lost, with long I and u becoming normal lengthed, and long a merging with its short equivalent. The Latin diphthongs I and oi became long e and a respectively in most of Romance, before later losing their length. Then leading up to Old Spanish, the two open mid-vowels e and o shifted to ye and we in stressed syllables, while merging with e and o in unstressed syllables. This resulted in verbs having e ye or o we alteration, like with mantener and tienes, and dormir and duermo. The diphthong au also shifted to o by Old Spanish. Moving on to changes with consonants, double na and la from Latin shifted to palatal nya and ya respectively. Old double N would gradually turn into Nye in writing, though Spanish would keep spelling the new y sound as a double L. The consonant clusters pla, cla, and fla also became pronounced as y at the start of many words, though not all of them. The sound h was completely lost, so Latin hominem became hombre. Leading into Old Spanish, fa ended up shifting to h, except for when it was next to other consonants. So formiga shifted to hormiga, but frio remained the same. Plosives pa, ba, ta, da, ka, and ga were all lost at the ends of syllables. Velar ka and ga also became palatalized before e and I, with Latin ke and ki turning into tse and si, and Old ge and gi becoming j and g, which were more often j and g by Old Spanish. The sound wa shifted to the voice bilabial fricative va, and labiovelar plosives qua and gua would become plain ka and ga in many words, with Latin quid turning into Spanish que. A sound change called syncope also occurred, where vowels were lost in between certain pairs of consonants. This included vowels next to ra or la, between sa and ta, among many other pairs of consonants. So words like viridis, insula, and positus became verde, isla, and puesto. The plain palatal approximant ya shifted to the voice palatal fricative ya in Old Spanish, as opposed to ja like in French and Portuguese. Between vowels, singular sa and ra became voice za and the tap ra respectively, as opposed to double sa and ra from Latin, which while losing their gemination, remained as a voiceless sa and a trilled ra respectively. Also between vowels, pa, ta, and ka became voiced ba, da, and ga in many words, but not all of them. The voiced affricates za also appeared from intervocalic tsa, and the post-alveolar fricative in affricate sh and cha would enter Iberian Romance as well in words like basho and hacha. Other miscellaneous sound changes happened as well, such as syllable final ra becoming la in some words, ya being dropped before front vowels, with Januarius turning into enero, and the cluster kta turning into cha, with Latin octo for the number 8 becoming ocho. The grammar of Romance also changed drastically as it evolved from Latin to Old Spanish. The noun cases were lost one by one during the times of Vulgar Latin, substituted with prepositions. The neuter gender was also lost, completely merging with the masculine due to similar forms. The definite and indefinite articles arose, with the indefinite coming from the Latin word for one, unus, resulting in masculine un and feminine una. The definite article came from Latin ille, the demonstrative meaning that or those, with masculine singular el, masculine plural los, feminine singular la, and feminine plural las. Since nouns lost their cases, adjectives stopped inflecting for them, only changing for gender and number like with articles. Verb tenses also changed. The simple past, also known as the preterite, arose from the Latin perfect tense. The future tense was lost in Vulgar Latin before reappearing with different forms in Old Spanish. Passive started to be formed analytically instead of fusionally, which is to say they started being expressed with 2 or more words, and the subjunctive perfect and subjunctive imperfective were lost entirely. The conditional also came into being around this time. It's worth mentioning that many Arabic loanwords entered Spanish during the period when Al-Andalus was around, bringing in words such as alcalde, aldea, almohada, arroz, azul, azar, barrio, enchufar, marfil, pato, rincón, and taza.
Alright, my turn. Now let's talk about certain spelling conventions for Old Spanish that were established. Of course, ñ became standard, and another diacritic letter was Sevilla, which was used to write ts after hard consonants a, o, and u. Meanwhile, plain c represented the sound ts after e and e, with the letter z representing it at the end syllables while representing the sound z everywhere else. Sh was written with the letter x, while both the letter j and the soft g were used to write its voice counterpart, j. Between vowels, the letter s was a voiced z sound, and to indicate voiceless s, they would use a double s, as is done with Portuguese today, and mirroring the distinction between ere and erre. Now, interestingly enough, the glottal fricative h was also written with the letter f. Insert a more natural transition to the fact that the ch sound was spelled with a ch, as it is in modern Spanish today. Now, the letters q, u was still used for the qu sound, and there were digraphs ph, th, ch, and rh used for words of Greek origin. The letter y also represented the sound e in Greek loans, and was used at the beginnings of some non-Greek words, still surviving in some names like Ibarra and Iglesias.
From here, as the Reconquista ends and the Spanish Empire forms off the backs of exploited indigenous peoples of the Americas, we finally transition into early modern Spanish. The voiced stops ba, da, and ga started being allophonically softened to fricatives or approximates the, and the. There's a good chance that most Spanish speakers thought I just made the same 3 sounds twice. As a result of this softening, the sounds ba and v fully merged, so the letters b and v started representing the same sound. Affricates tsa and tsa shifted to apical fricatives sa and sa, and then the voiced sibilants za, sa, and zha lost their voicing, merging with sa, and sha. After that, sha became the velar fricative cha, so general became general, which ended up as modern Spanish general. Apical sa would then shift to tha in most dialects of European Spanish, except for in Andalusia, where both it and the regular sa sound merged. And since a lot of the Spanish colonists who went to the Americas were from Andalusia, all of Latin America also doesn't distinguish the 2 sounds, only having the played sa sound, though most of Andalusia today only has the dentialveolar sa, which sounds closer to tha. The glottal fricative ha, which shifted from earlier fa, once again stopped being pronounced, but fa started reappearing in positions where it otherwise became silent through learned borrowings from Latin. Syllable final stops pa, ba, ta, za, ka, and ga also reappeared in words from Latin, displacing words without them, except in a few cases, as exemplified by the distinction between respecto and respeto. While earlier forms of Spanish had nos and vos for we and y'all, the forms nosotros and vosotros later appeared, contracting to nosotros and vosotros, displacing nos and vos as subject pronouns, though they remained used as objects. Vos also became used as a regular you throughout a lot of Latin America, displacing tu in some places while coexisting with it in others. Usted also emerged as a formal version of you from earlier vuestra merced, which was a contraction of vuestra merced, meaning your mercy. The pluperfect, also known as the past perfect, started being formed analytically at this time. For example, Latin compseras, meaning you had eaten, evolved into modern Spanish habías comido. Spanish spelling changed a lot during the 1700s and 1800s. Many letters or combinations of them were removed, such as cedilla, ze, zi, and double s. X also stopped being used to represent ch, mostly remaining in Mexican place names like Jalapa, Oaxaca, and well, Mexico. Interestingly, from 1741 to 1815, circumflexes were used after ch and x to indicate that they were pronounced ka and xa respectively. Many Greek loans were respelled, removing ph, th, ch, and y, while words from Latin that used to have a h sound originally had the h written once more, even though it was unpronounced and had been for centuries. Upside down question marks and exclamation marks also started being used around this time.
Alright, now let's get into modern Spanish, which is the era of today. The majority of these changes vary by the dialect. For example, the two y sounds merge in 90% of modern Spanish speakers, while the other 10% who do make this distinction are in parts of Spain and across the Andes Mountains. In Argentina and Uruguay, both sounds have shifted to the voiced post-alveolar fricative, zh, which has become sh in the speech of most younger people. Vosotros in the second person plural conjugation was also lost in most of Latin America, with ustedes and the third person plural replacing it in speech. Places that use vos as the subject pronoun have also developed a unique conjugation for it, distinct from the conjugation of tu. And vowels have become allophonically nasalized before coda m and n, and syllable final s and d, after reducing to h in rapid speech across many dialects.
You can learn a lot more about the pronunciation of modern Spanish and how to get a better Spanish accent over on the LingoLizard channel, as part of our collab.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching, and just as LingoLizard said, if you're interested in the pronunciation of modern Spanish, go check out my video. Ciao!
Besides that, you know the drill, like, comment, and subscribe, woo! Thank you to my Patreon supporters, with special thanks to Forois, Dope Kid, Omair, Andrew Brown, Rosetta Stevens, Sunder, Adam Drinek, Dunyo Kwon, Tautamera, Erica Sim, and until next time, adios!